On Thursday, Bob settled at the table, eyeing his Miller Lite bottle. He opted for just a six-pack, wary of getting drunk if things went awry soon. When the upstairs music ceased, he grasped that his wife neared completion of her preparations. Typically, Bob worked late on Thursdays due to his wife's bachelorette parties with friends. His parents took their daughter, Casey, and his wife enjoyed drinks with coworkers. He lingered, tackling paperwork to ensure an early Friday departure for family time. It all seemed meticulously planned. He carved out time in his busy schedule, his parents lavished attention on their granddaughter, and his wife relished personal time with friends. At least, that's what he believed. He was reminded of last Tuesday's lunch with Vicky by the sound of his wife ascending to the bathroom. He thought about the need to frequent the store more or inquire about delivery for those amazing sandwiches. Seating himself to monitor the door, he soon spotted a familiar figure entering the restaurant. Observing her scanning the room, Bob rose and waved. She caught sight of him and headed his way. At 31, Vicky was the eldest of his wife's former flames. Bob held a fondness for her and noted she was the only married one among them. She possessed a knack for soothing tensions without being a doormat. He had to concede with her dark, wavy hair and fair complexion. Vicky looked quite appealing. While lacking in the chest department, she boasted a stunning face and legs for days. Her husband, Ron, regarded her as a heaven-sent gift, a sentiment reciprocated. As she settled across from him, she thanked Bob for meeting. "I understand how busy you are, Bob. I appreciate your time," she said, fixing him with an intense gaze. "No problem, Vicky," Bob replied. "Though I must confess, meeting you here without Sharon feels a tad uncomfortable. I prefer dining with my spouse, but since it concerns Sharon, I'm all ears. I presume you're planning a surprise for her birthday next month." Bob didn't anticipate the sadness in Vicky's eyes at the mention of their lunch or Sharon's birthday. "What's wrong, Bob? I know you and Sharon deeply love each other. I've witnessed enough to recognize your bond. That's why I'm here. It might strain our friendship, but if it helps salvage your marriage, I'm committed." "There's no easy way to put this, but Sharon has been seeing someone for 2 months now," Vicky revealed. Bob was stunned. "This has to be a joke. A really bad one," he expressed to Vicky. "I'm very sorry, Bob, but it's not a joke. About 3 months ago, after you took on this project you're working on, Sharon became depressed. She's been irritable at work, and when we go out, she seems even more bored than usual. After a few martinis, we managed to get her to open up about missing you and feeling abandoned. She also mentioned feeling like you two were just a middle-aged married couple, letting life pass you by." Just then, the waiter came to take Vicky's order. She opted for a Cobb salad and lemon iced tea. Bob's mind was still racing with thoughts of his wife being secretive. In their 8 years together, Bob was confident his wife would confide in him if she felt unhappy. He believed they were always honest about their feelings, even when they disagreed. He turned to Vicky and urgently whispered, "Did she sleep with him?" "No, at least not as far as I know. And based on what I know of her, your wife is usually pretty open. That's why I'm surprised by her behavior," Vicky responded. "Bob, you should know something. Every woman I've talked to says the same thing. I imagine you both often complain about being overwhelmed by everyday life, or something along those lines," Vicky continued. "When Sharon brought it up, we all sympathized with her and told her the same thing, that she's a handsome woman and you should pay more attention to her. Unfortunately, my sister was there that night." "What does your sister have to do with this?" Bob asked, managing to suppress some anger. "Honestly, my sister is promiscuous," Vicky replied. The waiter who brought her tea raised an eyebrow at her comment. Vicky took a sip and went on. "My parents were both cheaters. I don't know who cheated first, but they always wanted revenge on each other. When I was 17, I asked them why they were still together, and they acted like I was from another planet. They said they loved each other, and that's all that mattered. This affected my sister and me differently. I realized cheating ruins relationships. But my sister thought it was okay as long as you love each other. I love her, but she's misguided. Anyway, back to the point. My sister Gary suggested that if she doesn't find romance at home, she should seek it elsewhere. I told her she was wrong, but then Hannah and Gail started discussing finding better partners and keeping things secret. I think for them it was purely academic, especially since they're not married. Sharon said she'd never cheat on you, but I think my sister's words planted doubts in her mind." "Why do you think that?" asked Bob. Now uncertain about Sharon's fidelity, he began to process more information. None of this was easy to hear, but Bob always believed that knowledge was power. The following week, Luke Jonas and his team joined them at the Red Horse Bar. Sharon claims she didn't invite him, but she mentioned our group dance plans to him. It's usually fun when more people try something new, but not with Luke around. Now armed with a name, Bob acknowledged, "Knowledge is power." "Tell me about that guy, Luke," Bob demanded. Vicky noted Bob's assertive tone with a slight smile and proceeded, "Luke Jonas is notorious for chasing women. He pursues every woman, showing interest in anyone who falls sufferer to his charm. He doesn't mind if she's married or not, or particularly attractive. He simply enjoys the chase. Your wife caught his eye from the start, but until that night, he hadn't pursued her. Now he's after her, and instead of standing up to him, she's avoiding him. It's common knowledge that if Luke faces another lovemaking molestation charge, he's fired. She could halt his advances, but she doesn't. They've been frequently seen chatting in the cafeteria for the past few months. I attempted to discuss it with her, but she became defensive, insisting they're only friends and that Luke listens to her and understands her problems. I questioned her if she'd act the same way if you were present, and she blushed, admitting she wouldn't. Then she became upset, mentioning something about you not noticing her. After that, I backed off and kept an eye on her. They appeared to settle down at work, and I thought everything was back to normal until that incident 3 weeks ago. As Vicky's order arrived, she began to eat. Bob, observing his reaction, sipped his lemonade, his mind elsewhere. He wondered how she could think he'd be upset about her flirting with another man. He knew he wasn't overly jealous simply because he loved and trusted his wife. As for not noticing her, he pondered if he had become too absorbed in his work project. There's a significant reward waiting for him in the end, but perhaps he's pushed too hard. Curiosity about the incident 3 weeks ago nagged at him. Did he really want to know? For the next 5 minutes, they ate in silence as Bob processed Vicky's revelations. Undoubtedly, he was angry. She had no justification for being so close with another man. Yet, he could almost understand her logic. If he had been more attentive, perhaps none of this would have happened. And by not informing him of her flirtatious behavior, she was essentially lying to him. Of course, it was a lie of omission, but for now, he could overlook her actions and focus on fixing the situation. He would speak to her and share his concerns. If she's honest and agrees to distance herself from Luke, they can move forward. So far, he hadn't seen any lasting damage, unless, of course, something significant occurred within the last 3 weeks. "Tell me what happened 3 weeks ago. How bad was it?" he asked. With this inquiry, he found some solid mental ground beneath him. He felt he could handle it. Vicky looked at him sympathetically. "This is where it gets ugly, Bob. 3 weeks ago, we found ourselves back at the Red Horse Bar to dance. Luke and his friends arrived, and we all danced together, having a good time. Sharon had been drinking more than usual, with Luke purchasing drinks for her all evening, causing her to become quite intoxicated. I accompanied her to the restroom and realized she was even more inebriated than I had initially thought. Upon exiting, she held underwear in her hand, explaining that she wanted to feel liberated. Well, she was nearly drunk. I attributed her behavior to the drink and assisted her back to our table. I began attempting to persuade Hannah and Gail to help me take Sharon to my house so she wouldn't return home overly intoxicated. However, I noticed Sharon and Luke getting too close, bumping into each other and simulating lovemaking acts on the dance floor. After the group dancing ended, the rest of the evening felt like background noise. I witnessed Sharon placing the underwear in Luke's pocket at the end of a song, unfortunately witnessed by everyone else in the bar. Whistles echoed throughout the bar as Luke grinned widely and proceeded to give her a deep kiss. One of his friends recorded the scene on a mobile phone. I had hoped Sharon would resist, but she went along with it. When she noticed Bob's reaction, she apologized, saying she was sorry. His jaw literally dropped open, and he had to leave. He stuttered as he stood up and walked away, locking himself inside the bathroom, excusing himself for just a second. As he splashed water on his face and gripped the sink tightly, he recalled the night Sharon arrived home late, around 2:30 a.m., after Vicky called to say she'd be staying with her due to excessive drinking. This had happened several times before, and Bob was always grateful that Vicky and the girls ensured Sharon didn't receive a DUI citation. He remembered the passionate lovemaking they shared that night, sensing something different in her behavior. Returning to the present, he was overcome with rage, feeling betrayed by her arousal for another man and seemingly prepared for a confrontation upon returning home. Damn, he thought. What if she was thinking about him while we were together? After composing himself, he returned to the table, noticing the sympathy on Vicky's face, but unsure how to respond. His sandwich remained untouched as he asked Vicky for more information. Honestly, Bob, that's about it, she replied. The recent bachelorette parties were held at Hannah's house with wine and a lingerie show at work. Sharon seems distant with Luke, although he continues to pursue her. I thought it was over, but just yesterday I saw them talking. They stopped when I approached, so I'm not sure what's going on. I felt you needed to know, as she no longer listens to her friends, Vicky explained. As the waiter brought the bill, Bob quickly grabbed it and searched for his credit card. I'd like to observe their interaction and perhaps intimidate them right off the bat, he suggested. Sharon proposed, You ladies are going to the Red Horse Bar this week, so this Thursday when you go there, I'll show up and monitor them from the sidelines. He abruptly paused, noticing the apprehensive expression on Vicky's face. What did I say wrong? He inquired of Bob. Hannah has a doctor's appointment early Friday morning, and Gail is visiting her brother in Florida. If Sharon goes out on Thursday, it won't be with us, Vicky explained, reaching across the table to grasp my hand. I'm so sorry, darling, she expressed sorrowfully. I know it's better not to ask if you're okay. But here's my home phone number. Call any time to talk to Ron or me. Her husband was a marriage counselor, so conversing with him might prove beneficial. Thank you for informing me, Vicky. I understand this must be challenging for you, but I genuinely believe you're a good person and a good friend. I'm uncertain of what lies ahead, but I'm aware of the present circumstances, and I can take some measures. Thanks again. Bob expressed his gratitude, rose from the table, settled the credit card bill, and departed on Wednesday. Today marked a breakthrough in the project Bob was engaged in. They managed to secure a supply of finished parts from a startup company in Harrisburg, reducing setup time by 2 months, ensuring at least a week's supply despite unstable transport logistics. With 2 more phone calls, this plan would be completed 2 months ahead of schedule, saving millions for the military. The cash bonus would also be substantial, as Bob anticipated, and the project's recognition would significantly elevate his reputation. He should have been as content as a cat with a belly full of sour cream. Instead, he pondered how much he dreaded returning home and facing what he felt he should address. He resolved to investigate the matter himself. While he lacked access to her work email, he doubted they communicated through it given HR's control. He logged into her Yahoo email account but found nothing incriminating. However, she could have a separate account, which he wouldn't know until accessing their home computer. Bob acknowledged his lack of tech savvy, realizing that buying security cameras or installing voice-activated microphones sounded appealing in theory, but he already had a counterplan in mind. He simply aimed to gather as much information as possible to gauge the extent of effort required to salvage or terminate his marriage. Sharon had already taken their daughter Casey away from his parents and manipulated him into delivering Chinese food. When he asked what she wanted, she responded by saying that, after 10 years together and 8 of them married, he should know by now that she loves him. He couldn't resist being sarcastic in his response, mentioning that he just wanted to ensure she's still content with the arrangement. His phone rang immediately after. She then requested an extra roll, mentioning Shakto. Had it not been for yesterday's bombshell, he would have been elated to arrive home an hour earlier and spend time with his wife and child. However, glancing at the clock, he realized that before the project began, this hour would have been 2 hours later. He also recognized that he hadn't been home with his family this early on a Friday since the project started. Coupled with fatigue and stress, it was evident how Sharon might feel neglected, yet that didn't justify her actions. As he entered through the front door, he caught sight of his wife reaching for a bottle of wine. He paused, simply admiring her figure. At 31, she epitomized the prime of womanhood. Standing at 5 feet tall, she boasted curves that were undeniably enticing. Even in loose sweatpants, her shapely rear was evident. With her hair tied back in a ponytail, she turned around, flashing him a radiant smile, prompting him to reflect on how incredibly fortunate he was to have her. Then, reality hit him. I'm so happy you're home, honey. How was work? She approached him, planting a kiss on his lips. Pretty good. We've made a major breakthrough on some supplies, so we might finish the project at least a month ahead of schedule. Sweetheart, I know I've been away from home a lot due to this project. It sucks that I can't share the details because it's classified. But I want you to know that you and Casey are my top priority, and I'll do everything to keep us safe, he assured her, gazing into her eyes. Did he detect a hint of remorse or guilt? Or was he just imagining things? It was one of those moments when he cursed his inability to read people. Often labeled as straightforward, he preferred direct communication and expected the same from others. While he knew his approach might initially seem blunt, people appreciated his honesty and no-nonsense attitude. This method had served him well for 34 years, and he saw little reason to change it until now. "Ah, darling," she responded. "We both adore you and understand. I do wish there were more of you around, but I know this is temporary. Still, I'm glad you acknowledge it." She seemed on the verge of tears. Was she genuinely emotional or just a skilled actress? "So, what does the project's early completion mean for you?" she inquired, unpacking food containers from her bag. "Well, firstly, it means a substantial bonus to my salary. The exact amount remains unknown until the project is approved, but it's not insignificant. Moreover, successfully completing our first government project should attract more work to the company. As the project leader, there may be lucrative opportunities with government contractors seeking my expertise. The higher-ups are aware of this, so I might negotiate some additional perks. If all goes smoothly, it should be quite rewarding," he explained, attempting to eat his sweet and sour pork with chopsticks before opting for a fork. "Didn't I mention this before?" he queried between bites. "Not that I recall, darling," she replied. "All I remember is you mentioning a significant contract you couldn't discuss, but it sounded promising." "And since then, it seems like we haven't had much conversation," she remarked, appearing a bit downcast before perking up. "But it looks like my husband will be back soon," she added with a brighter tone. He glanced at her. "Time to go fishing. So, what bar are you ladies heading to tomorrow night? Should I swing by after work to ensure you're all okay to drive home?" he asked, aiming for a casual tone. "Oh, actually, we decided to go to the Red Horse Bar for some group dancing, but I think we'll be done before you finish work," she replied, her gaze shifting to her orange chicken. His heart sank. At that moment, Casey finished her egg roll and requested bedtime stories. He cleared his plate and rinsed it in the sink before lifting his daughter and carrying her into the living room. For the next hour, he indulged his child by reading story after story until she drifted off to sleep. A soft snore emanated from the sofa where he spotted his wife curled up with her book abandoned in her lap. Picking up his daughter, he ascended the stairs to her bedroom, laying her gently in bed and tucking her in snugly beneath the covers. As he contemplated the forthcoming day, tears welled in his eyes. He longed for his daughter to remember these pleasant evenings with her parents, rather than the looming hardships ahead. Wiping away his tears, he descended the stairs to where his wife slept on the sofa. He pressed a tender kiss to her lips and pulled the blanket over her to shield her from the chill. Then he set out to find her phone, discovering it plugged into a wall socket on the nightstand in their bedroom. Unlocking it with a swipe, he began scrolling through her text messages. It didn't take long to find what he was seeking. Scrolling back, he traced their exchanges over the past 3 months. Him. "Hey, beautiful. It was fun watching you and the girls dance last night." Her. "Likewise. Bob works late on Thursdays and the in-laws watch Casey, so we had a girls' night." Him. "Your husband seems like a good guy, letting you have some fun." Her. "Yes, he's amazing." The messages remained benign for the next few weeks until this particular exchange. Her. "Vicky gave me a talking to today about our lunch breaks. I was annoyed, but she picked up on everything." Him. "Exactly. I don't want any misunderstandings." Her. "She asked if Bob would approve of how we've been acting, which got me thinking we might be giving off the wrong signals. Plus, I shouldn't be confiding all my issues to another guy. I'll try talking to Bob." Him. "I understand, but if you can't get his attention, you know where to find me. I'll even treat you to dinner if need be. Just as friends." Bob couldn't recall her attempting to discuss anything with him, but it might have been when he discovered the necessity for food-grade stainless steel for the project. He dedicated several days to sourcing a supplier capable of meeting the required quantity. Throughout this period, he could have been oblivious even if a bomb had been dropped on him. Until now. Reviewing her messages, all seemed innocuous. He felt it glaringly obvious that the idiot was making advances toward her. How could she not see it? Scrolling down, he encountered the next batch of messages. Her. "You have to return them today." Him. "What are you referring to?" Her. "You know very well my friends are furious with me right now, and I don't blame them. If Bob finds out I behaved like some sort of fancy woman, he might leave me." Him. "So you don't want me to show him the video?" Her. "What video? No one at work can see this." Him. "Sam was there, and he captured a video on his phone. I'll ensure he deletes it, but you owe me." Her. "Okay, I can't lose Bob. Not after last night." Him. "What happened last night?" Her. "It's really none of your business." Him. "Was he upset that you came home late and intoxicated?" Her. "Very funny." Hell, no. Let's just say something happened that turned everything upside down and leave it at that. Him. "So, Some dirty dancing with me made you toil for your husband's forgiveness? He should be thankful to me. Her. You're despicable. Last night was unforgettable, and it was because Bob and I love each other. Now give me back my underwear and ensure that damn video is erased. Her. Damn. It sounded like I was some sort of fancy woman. Bob deserves better than me. Him. No, he's fortunate to have you. He was keeping an eye on you, wasn't he? I'm sure he's a great guy, but you often go out alone. Her. I don't need anyone to watch over me. Just be the friend you claim to be and handle what I've asked. Please. Him. Sorry. Of course, I'll assist you, and afterward, I'll let you treat me to dinner. Her. Just ensure no one sees this video, and I'll do whatever you want. Nothing further until last Monday. Him. I heard the bachelorette party is canceled. How about dinner with me? Her. Not a good idea. Sorry. Him. Come on. Your husband will be at work, and the girls left you alone one evening with a friend, and we can chat like we used to in the cafeteria. Besides, you owe me. Her. Okay, I'll meet you at the Red Horse at 8. Him. No, meet me at TGIF located at the Sheraton Hotel. They have great drinks, and I don't want to be bothered by drunk idiots. If we drink too much, I'll get a room. Her. Okay, but it's just dinner with a couple of friends, and I'm grateful to you for ensuring the video never surfaced. It's bad enough that people at work have heard about this. Him. Don't worry about it. I saw Sam delete the video, and soon someone else will do something scandalous, and you'll be fine. See you at 8. That's when it hit him. This was likely the end of his marriage. How often had he witnessed his wife going out for a date with another man at a hotel restaurant bar? How could this end well? How could she not think closeness was involved? Closing the messages, he reconnected his phone to the charger, undressed, and slipped into bed alone. Sleep eluded him for a long while. On Thursday, she descended the stairs wearing her little black dress, the one she always donned when they went out together. She looked stunning. Pausing at the bottom of the stairs, she spotted him seated at the table. I didn't expect you to come home so early today, baby, she said, her tone faltering slightly. We need to talk, Sharon, he said, his voice devoid of emotion. This is perhaps the most crucial conversation we'll ever have. Please, take a seat. She sat down, looking apprehensive, and reached out for his hand as usual, but he withdrew it. I know there won't be a bachelorette party today. I know you're seeing Luke Jonas. Behind my back, he began. Bob, please let me explain. But he abruptly interrupted, slamming his fist on the table. Damn it, Sharon! Listen to me! He shouted. You can't speak until I've said my piece! She recoiled, tears welling in her eyes. He regarded her impassively and continued. As I said, I know you kissed that idiot at lunch. I know you danced with him at the Red Horse bar. I know you took off your underwear and gave them to him after some provocative moves on the dance floor. I know the only reason you were all over me 3 weeks ago was because you were excited about him. I also know that tonight you're going on a date with him to a restaurant in the hotel where your boyfriend has already made a reservation. I just don't know if you've already slept with him, and I don't know what could stop you if you haven't. He paused, trying to rein in his anger. Sharon, you lied to me by omission about Luke. You lied to me about your risque dance. And you lied to me about going out with the girls. Frankly, I'm exhausted, and my trust in you is shattered. I'm not even sure if I want to salvage this marriage, yet your actions suggest that you're no longer invested in it. Therefore, I present you with 3 options. He raised a finger. Option 1, you walk out that door and go to your idiot of a boyfriend. Even if you don't sleep together tonight, this choice will end our marriage. There's no chance I'll want to salvage it. He raised a second finger. Option 2, we sit here all night and you try to persuade me to work on saving our marriage. It'll be incredibly challenging for you to convince me, as I'm not inclined to believe a single word from your mouth. However, maybe you'll succeed because I truly love you, and we have a child to consider. I can tell you there's a 50% chance I'll be willing to try. He raised a third finger. Option 3, you take me with you tonight to confront your lover in front of me. You demand that he never speaks to or contacts you again. Then you allow us to speak to him privately for at least 15 minutes, out of earshot. This option will earn you the most respect and will maximize my willingness to work with you. If you didn't sleep with him or engage in any lovemaking activity, I promise I'll be 100% committed to making this relationship work. However, if you did, this is the only option that could potentially salvage our marriage. She appeared on the verge of vomiting, gazing at him with what could only be described as horror. Option 1, 2, or 3, Sharon. Which will you choose? The question lingered in the air for nearly a minute. She seemed to be restraining herself from being sick as she looked at me. Bob, I'm so sorry about everything, and I desperately need to talk to you. In response to your question, who will lead, you or me? Well, that was unexpected. I really didn't anticipate her opting for our meeting with her lover. I had thought it was almost certain she would sit here all night attempting to justify her behavior. Agreeing to arrange the meeting with her idiot actually earned her some points, but she was still deep in the red. I took the keys and followed her to the car. Out of habit, I opened the door for her, and she nearly broke down in tears as I pulled out onto the road. She glanced at me. "I really ruined everything for us, didn't I?" she asked quietly. "Yes, Sharon, you really did," I replied, keeping my eyes on the road. "What can I do to fix this?" she asked. I pondered for a moment. I had a couple of scenarios in mind. Well, first and foremost, complete honesty from now on. I shouldn't even have to say this, but evidently you think it's acceptable to omit things I should know or to lie to me repeatedly. Along with this, you need to find a way to make me believe what you say. I'm not sure how you plan to do this, but frankly, I wasn't the one who broke our trust. Another thing I didn't think needed to be mentioned, but I'll say it anyway. He's dead to you. If we stay together, you won't talk to him at work. You won't inquire about his day. If he shows up at the bar you're at, you leave. If you can't leave, call me immediately. You don't accept drinks or gifts from him. Regardless of what he says, you cut off all communication with him. Next, when we return tonight, you'll tell me everything. I don't want to hear your thoughts. I understand I was consumed by this project, so I'll take some responsibility. If you harbor any resentment toward me, let me know. And lastly, for now, schedule marriage counseling. If you prefer to choose a counselor yourself, feel free to do so. Maybe Ron can recommend someone. When I finished speaking, her phone chimed with a message. She glanced down and paled even further. "It's him wondering where I am," she murmured quietly. I reached out and she handed me the phone. Without a word, I scrolled through her text messages. There were a couple from earlier today. Him. "Hey, I booked a room with a jacuzzi. Maybe we can relax after lunch. Bring your bikini." Her. "You can't get me drunk enough to take a hot bath with you. I won't bring the bikini." Him. "We'll see. You know what happens when you drink. Maybe you won't need a bikini." And then just now, him. "Where are you?" "While waiting for you, I had a glass of wine." I replied, "I'm running a little late. I have a surprise for you." Him. "Oh, you brought your bikini. Perfect." I returned the phone to my wife. She read the messages and simply hung her head. "You know these messages don't help your case, right? Just the ones from today make it seem like you're planning to hook up with him tonight. How much worse will it look if I scroll further?" I asked, knowing full well how damning it would appear. "I suppose I should ask," I began. "Do you consider your text messages today as inappropriate flirting? Can you grasp how these exchanges have shattered all my trust in you?" I heard her sobbing. "Bob, I swear, I only intended to have dinner tonight. I never planned to sleep with him." I couldn't help but regard her as if she were foolish. "Were you intending to give him your underwear after taking them off, like you did a few weeks ago?" I didn't think she could grow any paler, but I was proven wrong. "Sharon, we're almost there. You might want to fix your makeup and think about what you're going to say to Luke. Oh, and avoid drinking wine." She pulled down the visor and retrieved a napkin from the glove compartment. As she began to compose herself and stop crying, she started applying mascara. In a more composed tone, she asked, "Bob, I understand why you think Luke was toying with me. Listening to you talk about it, I think it's true. But Bob, how could I have not seen this? I know my recent decisions don't reflect it, but I'm not a naive little girl. I've fended off more attractive and sophisticated men than Luke. So why did he target me? This is one of the reasons why I find it hard to believe what you say now." "Sharon, you're a beautiful, intelligent woman who should see through this nonsense. That's why I have to wonder. Did you go along with it willingly?" I responded. Imagine if I picked up some woman at a bar with this guy and lied to you that I was going to dinner with her tonight. No wonder you're so angry and hurt." Her color seemed to be returning, and her voice grew slightly firmer. "Okay, I messed up and now I have to find a way to fix it. Thank you for giving me a chance." She leaned in to kiss me, but at the last moment I turned my head, allowing her to peck me on the cheek. "I'm not over this. Not in the long run," I said. She looked at me, almost shocked. "We usually show a lot of affection. Hopefully we can get back to that. What should I tell him?" she asked as we pulled into the restaurant parking lot. Finding a spot, I turned off the engine and let my anger simmer. "What do I want you to tell him, Sharon? Our relationship is barely hanging on because of your actions with that idiot. You two have shattered the core of our marriage. Our daughter could spend Thanksgiving with you and Christmas with me. I want to make this clear, so tell him whatever you want." She sat quietly for a moment, then sighed and opened the car door. As we approached the restaurant in the hotel, she took a step as if reaching for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't welcome her touch either. We entered, and a pretty red-haired girl stood behind the small kiosk, asking if we were a party of two. Before I could respond, my wife interjected, stating that we were meeting someone there who was already present. The head waitress acknowledged her statement and suggested we take a look around. Not knowing what the person looked like, I relied on my wife to guide us. She lightly nudged me with her elbow and gestured towards the back of the restaurant where a man sat near the hotel door, seemingly engrossed in his phone. With determined steps, she walked towards the table and stopped without bothering to sit down. The man looked up, spotted her, and flashed a wide smile. It took him a moment to realize there was a man behind her. When he noticed me, his smile vanished, and his eyes narrowed slightly. "Luke, this is my husband, Robert Morgan. He's concerned about our relationship, and after talking with him, I have to agree. For the first time in our marriage, I've given him reason to doubt my fidelity. I'll work hard to repair the breach of trust caused by my relationship with you. From now on, I want nothing to do with you. There's no reason for you to call, text, or otherwise communicate with me. I accept responsibility for getting our relationship to this point. Now, I've chosen to end it." My husband is aware of my regrettable actions at the Red Horse Bar. I'll do everything I can to salvage my relationship with him, including informing HR of the entire situation. Tomorrow, I'll let them know that any attempt to engage me in non-work-related conversation will be unwelcome. Now, I'll sit at the bar while my husband talks to you." As she turned away, she kissed me before I could react. She looked into my eyes for a moment and whispered, "I'm truly sorry." I couldn't help but glance at her as she walked up to the bar. Everything turned out even better than I had anticipated. Slipping into the seat opposite the embarrassed playboy, I couldn't resist sizing him up. Dark hair, slender build, impeccably dressed. He might be considered attractive, but I've never been good at judging men. He was probably around my height, although it was hard to tell while he was seated. I couldn't help but notice his lingering gaze on the glass of wine on the table across from him. That almost confirmed my suspicions. It's time to keep my cool. I roughly knew what I wanted, but I had to figure things out as I went along. Quick thinking wasn't my strong suit. "So you thought it'd be a surprise to find her in a bikini?" I said with a half smile. "Do you really believe she told you everything?" He responded with a grin. Now that this fool was in front of me, I felt composed. This was a problem I could handle. "Actually, yes. I've known this woman for 10 years, and I've been married to her for 8. I believe I understand her better than some cute guy who's been pursuing her for 3 months. I maintained a smile. The waiter approached and asked for my drink order. I requested a double Johnny Walker Black with ice. "She certainly knows how to please a man," he remarked, still attempting to grin. He glanced at the glass of wine he had already ordered for her. "Yes, that's true this time." I grinned broadly at him. "But I don't think you're speaking from experience. Need photographs?" He joked, laughing. This guy was trying to provoke me. I felt the urge to reach across the counter, but instead, I laughed. "You don't have photographs. If she had gone that far with you, you wouldn't need to slip something in her drink. What are wannabe rapists using these days? Gamma-hydroxybutyrate, Rohypnol, or just good old ecstasy?" It was a guess, but his shocked expression dispelled any doubts. He flinched as I leaned across the table towards him. Now, I was genuinely furious. "You despicable coward! I should thrash you right here and now, but I'm not sure I won't end up eliminating you. I don't want to end up in jail at this moment." I gave my wife 3 options, and now I'm giving you 3 options. I jabbed my finger under his nose. "First, you're leaving. Right now, you'll go and apologize to my wife, and tomorrow you'll resign from your job. I promise not to pursue you. Then, you'll leave the city." I raised another finger. "Second, you go to the police and confess to medicating my wife's drink. Serve your sentence and stay away from my wife. I'll keep an eye on you, but I won't come after you. Then, you'll leave the city." I raised a third finger. "Third, I signed both of us up for boxing classes in 4 weeks. You and I will step into the ring, sign injury waivers, and neither of us will leave until we pass out. And when you wake up, you still leave my wife alone. Then, you'll leave the city." The waiter brought my scotch just as I finished. I took a long sip and felt the burn. It was time to regain composure. "You must think I'm a fool. Why would I agree to any of these options?" He smirked. I gave him what I hoped was a menacing grin. Because you don't want to spend the rest of your pathetic life looking over your shoulder. Every time you walk to your car at night, you'll wonder if I or one of my friends is lurking, ready to break your legs and crush your manhood with a baseball bat. Every time you answer the door, you won't know if I or one of my pals will barge in, tie you up, and castrate you. Every time you go to a bar, you'll worry if I or one of my buddies will spike your drink and subject you to unspeakable acts before maiming your manhood. You won't risk it. You're a coward, or so your wife claimed, after I had my way with her last night. His face regained color. I took another sip of whiskey, then reached into my pocket and activated the voice recorder on my phone. I hoped he would document our conversation. I really should have planned this evening better. "You were planning to medicate me wife and assault her, you pervert. Are you willing to gamble a lifetime of agony on me not following through?" It was time to reel him in. The medicaties were just to get her in the mood for when my friends arrived. We were planning to have our way with her tonight. My composure vanished altogether. I managed to grab him by the collar with my left hand and pull him towards me. Unable to slap too hard with my right hand due to being seated, I heard a satisfying crunch and felt his nose give way. He yelled, holding his nose, threatening to call the cops. In response, I told him to go ahead, calling him a jackass, and expressing my desire for the authorities to medicate, test the remaining wine in my glass, and listen to the tape of him confessing. The police responded to the disturbance in 10 minutes. Apparently, 2 officers were having lunch at the nearby subway. They took my statement and collected the remaining wine and glass for analysis. They searched Luke and found a packet of white powder. He requested a lawyer and refused to speak further. They listened to my recording and confiscated my phone as evidence. It was a struggle, but you could hear Luke discussing medicates and a planned assault. It was nearly 4 a.m. before Sharon and I were allowed to leave the police station. After her statement, one of the officers spent almost 15 minutes praising me and emphasizing how I prevented her from being assaulted. By the end, she was utterly shattered. Luke remained in police custody. We used her phone to quickly inform my parents of everything. They understood and promised to take care of Casey, deciding to take her to the zoo. As we pulled into the garage and switched off the car, we exchanged glances. She released her seatbelt and enveloped me across the console in a tight hug. I allowed her to cry on my shoulder for about a minute before gently guiding her away. "Sharon, we still need to have a conversation, but it's late and we should get some rest. Tomorrow, we'll both go to work and spend the day together sorting things out. How does that plan sound to you?" "Yes, Bob. Getting into bed sounds wonderful," she responded softly, then added, "May I please sleep beside you?" "Of course, baby." The following morning, I woke up and snuggled closer to her. Reflecting on the events of the previous night, I dared to hope that everything might turn out all right. However, I knew we still had a few discussions ahead before making any decisions. My hand rested on her stomach, and she brought it up to her chest. I felt a surge of emotion, but knew I needed to slow things down. Sitting up in bed, I playfully smacked one of her flawless backside. "Get up. Let's take a walk." "I don't want to have a serious conversation on an empty stomach," I suggested. Eventually, we ended up showering together, which did little more than expedite our morning routine. Despite the temptation, I wasn't ready to be in bed until we resolved our issues. We enjoyed breakfast at the International House of Pancakes, chatting about Casey and her upcoming fun time with my parents. We managed to keep the conversation light and upbeat. After finishing our last cup of coffee, we settled the bill and returned home, sitting down at the kitchen table to face each other. "Okay, I think I'll start," I began. "You can see for yourself what kind of person Luke is, so I won't dwell on that. He claimed you satisfied him and called me a teddy bear after sleeping with him a few days ago. Is that true?" "No. The worst encounter I had with him was that awful night at the Red Horse. I understand the gravity of my actions, but I never went further," she replied. "How can I believe you? You lied about going on a date with him last night, and you lied and omitted details about that bar incident. Not to mention your entire relationship with him," I expressed, feeling it was time to be transparent. "I've been pondering this, and I think I have a suggestion," I continued. "What about a polygraph test?" she asked. "Do you mean a lie detector test?" I clarified. She nodded. "Yes, Schedule 1. Ask me anything you want. Just let me know the time and place." Her genuine expression was striking. "I understand these tests aren't foolproof, but I'd feel much better if you went ahead and told the truth." "I'll see what I can arrange. It might take some time to set up, but it's worth considering," I responded. "Actually, it might take longer than expected," I added. She smiled. That's a good starting point. We can revisit the extent of your involvement later. But my next question will likely be the toughest. It's what hurts me the most and has the biggest impact on our relationship. How do we move forward? The incident with the underwear embarrassed you, and I get that. I don't like it, but I understand. It's hard for me to deal with the fact that you got close to another guy without telling me. But if you thought it was just a platonic friendship, I can understand. What I can't understand, and what makes me want to walk away before I get hurt again, is when you said you were seeing other girls when you were actually meeting him for dinner. A blatant lie, disregarding the consequences. But it broke my heart when you said you were dating other people. I know there were tears in my eyes, but I felt powerless. Bob, all I can do is explain what I was thinking at the time. First, I want to say how sorry I am for lying to you about everything. When you took on that project for the first time since we've been together, I felt like I wasn't a priority. I'm not blaming you or your work. I understand why you took it on and how important it was to you. I'm just expressing how I felt. I started feeling down, and then my sister Vicky said something that stuck with me. She suggested finding romance elsewhere. I never saw it as cheating on you. I realized that while you were busy with the project, I might find what I needed elsewhere. And then Luke came along. I didn't fully realize it, but he made me feel special. He asked about my day, my family, my interests. Our conversations were mostly about me. She sighed, watching my reaction, which I tried to conceal. When Vicky confronted me at lunch, I realized what I was doing. I was using Luke to fulfill what I felt I couldn't get from you. But I still wanted to work things out with you. The night things got out of hand. I didn't invite him or his friends. They showed up before my other friends did. Luke bought drinks, including for me. I ended up more intoxicated than I've ever been with you. I've made some terrible mistakes that you know about. But then we had an incredible night, which confused me even more. How could I act so promiscuously with him but then have such wonderful moments with you? She stood up to pour herself some water, drinking half before continuing. Then the video surfaced. I knew you'd be furious, rightfully so. If you got drunk and kissed another woman, I'd be furious too. And I knew it would be worse, because after our passionate encounter, you'd wonder if I was thinking of someone else. So I made another mistake. I tried to involve Luke to cover it up. Perhaps he encouraged it, then made sure I knew. I felt obligated to help him out, and he wanted to take me to dinner when my friends couldn't. I was lonely, thinking you wouldn't be home until late. In a moment of weakness, I made a terrible choice, and I'm truly sorry. Our relationship has always been built on trust, and I broke it. Tears streamed down her face, though she didn't sob. "Oh my God," I said, standing to embrace her. I kissed her tenderly, then pulled back. "We're not there yet, and it'll take time. But if you're fully committed, so am I." Sharon and I attended counseling for some time. Discussing my issues helped me overcome them. The significant outcome for me was that, given communication has been a strength since our first encounter, we continue to work on it. Additionally, the counselor recommended Sharon undergo testing for hormonal imbalances. At 31, it seemed premature to worry about this, but it proved to be worthwhile. Following several tests and a switch in birth control pills, she experienced improvement. Though we're not entirely back to where we were, we're in a good place again. The polygraph test confirmed her honesty in all the challenging questions I posed. While there's still a lingering doubt about the accuracy of these tests in my mind, I can accept it. I decided to enroll in boxing lessons, while Sharon became intrigued by the self-defense classes offered there. Thursday nights for her turned into self-defense evenings. Sharon suggested we join martial arts classes where she excels, and I struggle to keep up. Sparring has become our favorite form of foreplay. The project was completed 6 weeks ahead of schedule and under budget. My company now competes with major players in government contracts. Although they wanted to promote me to vice president, I declined due to excessive travel requirements. Instead, I established the Special Projects Department and lead it now. This came with a new office and a secretary assistant. My new assistant has a stunning figure and a dazzling smile, and she fulfills my needs perfectly. Thus far, there haven't been any complaints about my wife and me working together. As long as we bring in revenue, I doubt anyone will raise objections. Most of the $38,000 ASAWI bonus from my initial project went towards Casey's college fund. However, I had saved enough for a week-long, all-inclusive resort vacation with my wife. My parents are prepared to return my daughter when we get back. I received an assault charge for punching Luke. Despite this, it's the most fulfilling $300 and 40 hours of community service I've ever completed. Luke will serve 3 to 5 years for attempted maltreatment and possession of a controlled substance. The substance turned out to be gamma-hydroxybutyrate. Additionally, he was assaulted while walking to his car in the evening, but it wasn't by me. Evidently, one of his previous sufferer's brothers caught up with him. The assailant will serve 2 to 3 years for the attack. I deposit $50 monthly into his prison commissary account.